Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're looking at the top players to target in Game Week 10 Sun Dream Team. Now, as always, we have the fixture ticker from ffstuff.co.uk up on the screen. The deadline is Saturday, 11 a.m, ahead of the Newcastle Arsenal early kickoff at 12:30. Tune into our deadline stream. We're going to be streaming from 10 a.m. to the deadline on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. So keep an eye out for that one. Game week 10, another European double game week. So City, Arsenal, Liverpool, United, Villa, Spurs and Chelsea all have a double game week this week, with all other teams just playing the one Premier League match. But we do know that Chelsea field pretty much a fully changed starting 11. So we've been sort of disregarding them as one of the European sides to target. But Spurs have also been rotating pretty much the whole team as well. So only 3 or 4 first team players have been really starting in each of their European matches. So that is something to consider now as we get later into the tournament. Of the European sides, I think that Liverpool have the best double game week this week. So Brighton at home and Bayer Leverkusen at home. I feel like they have the best double out of the European sides this week. Man City, 2 away fixtures, but they are Bournemouth and Sporting Lisbon. So I think these are 2 winnable games for them, although they do have a pretty long injury list at the minute. Arsenal, pretty tough away game. Obviously, I said that they are away at Newcastle in the early kickoff. People say never back the early kickoff. I'm hoping we can do all right. And then Inter Milan away is going to be a tough one as well. And these are 2 teams, so Newcastle away and Inter away, who have recently taken points off of Manchester City. So it is going to be a tough week for Arsenal. United, they're going to be an interesting one. So a lot of you went there last time round when there was that little peak after the Barnsley Carabao Cup match, but they've just sacked Ten Hag. They've had a little bit of a new manager bounce, if you can call it that, with Ruud van Nistelrooy taking over for the Leicester Carabao Cup match, but Leicester did fully rotate. But their fixture list is really good. So they've got 2 home games. Chelsea, obviously, is a tough game. We know that. And then PAOK. But the fixtures after that are pretty good as well. So if you do go for Man United players, you are banking on sort of a new manager bounce and that these fixtures are going to breed a little bit of form. But I am interested in United at the moment. Villa and Spurs, I'm not so hot on at the minute. So they both face each other in the Premier League, which could be a close game, hard to call. And then Spurs have Galatasaray away, which is always a tough fixture, while Villa have Club Brugge in Europe. I expect Villa to probably go quite a bit stronger in Europe than Spurs. That's what's been happening lately. But Villa have rotated a few players in the recent Champions League matches. Ollie Watkins missed the last one. I think Digne might have also missed the last Champions League match. So just bear that in mind. Of the single game week teams, I'm not going to highlight them too much, but there's a few that have got a nice fixture run coming. And there are a few Premier League single game weeks and double game weeks coming, which I'll come on to in a minute. But of the ones that do have nice single game weeks this week, Everton away at Southampton, Wolves home to Palace. Wolves have a really nice run coming. And then Brentford away to Fulham. I think people might be interested in them as they could have had Mbuemo from last week. So a bit of a longer term look. So over the next 4 game weeks. And like I said, you could do this yourself on the FF Stuff fixture ticker. There's a link in the description below. But you can move the arrows along the top, see how many fixtures teams have over a certain amount of time. We're looking from game week 10 to game week 13. And you can see that all of the European sides have 7 fixtures versus the non-European sides have 5. So you get a 2 fixture gain by going for these European sides. But bear in mind, rotation in Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League. So game week 11 is a single game week for all teams, which means there could be some 1 week punts there if you do decide to go for a non-European side. And then there's an international break after that. So it feels like we've only just had one. We've got another one coming after game week 11. Game week 12 is another European double game week. So if you do go for European players this week, they're going to be fine to keeping your squad a little bit longer. But then game week 13 is an exciting Premier League double game week. So it looks like it could be a nice opportunity to use some boosters. I'm not going to talk too much about boosters in this episode, to be honest, because I don't think it's a great week for them. But keeping an eye on game week 13 could be an answer because 2 Premier League fixtures for all clubs opens up the player pool. So there might be some opportunities to play some then. So some standouts looking at it from the longer term. Liverpool have 3 home games in a row, followed by Southampton and then Real Madrid in a double. So Southampton and Real Madrid in a double. So Bit of good, a bit of bad that week, but then it's City Newcastle in that Premier League double. So Liverpool might not be one of the teams that you'll be targeting too heavily if you do end up playing a booster in game week 13. But overall, looks good for the start, and then it gets a little bit tougher with Real Madrid and City coming up after. After this week, Arsenal start a nice run of fixtures. So Arsenal, Newcastle away, Inter away this week isn't great. Chelsea away in game week 11, but then you've got Forest, Sporting, West Ham, United, Fulham, Monaco, Everton, Palace, and then Palace again. So that Palace fixture in the Carabao Cup is right next to Palace in the Premier League. United fixture run, I said I really like this. So home, 3 games in a row, and then 2 newly promoted sides back to back with Leicester and Ipswich. Arsenal away in game week 13 is probably the next really hard game. Of course, they do have Chelsea this week, but it is at home. Villa and Spurs, I mentioned, both playing each other this week. I think their fixture run gets quite a bit tougher looking ahead. So Spurs have got City and Roma in game week 12. Villa have Liverpool away in game week 11 and Juve in game week 12. So it might be something to consider if you've got quite a lot of Villa and Spurs players in your team. Now let's look at some projections from 11afire.com. So we've got goal predictions from 11afire. Liverpool lead the way with 2.47 predicted goals. They're at home to Brighton. You've got Spurs in second, which surprised me. 2.08 goals projected at home to Aston Villa. And then Man City just sneaking above 2 goals with 2.01 away to Bournemouth. And there's not much separating Arsenal, United and Chelsea in 4th, 5th and 6th. Looking at some clean sheet projections as well. So Liverpool and City are both joint top, tied on 36% chance of keeping a clean sheet. So not that high this week for clean sheets. Arsenal at 30. And then we have a surprise package of Nottingham Forest at 30% chance of keeping a clean sheet as well at home to West Ham. So Sells owners like me will like the sound of that one. Villa, third bottom with 13%. A lot of people with Villa defenders. Obviously, this is just a projection. They could well keep a clean sheet against Spurs, but obviously Spurs are projected to score 2.08 at home to Aston Villa. So the bookies or the models not really fancying Aston Villa against Spurs this week. And one thing to notice as well, United, Chelsea, right down low on the list because there's plenty of goals projected in that one. If you found that useful, please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. But let's go on to the top players to target from each side. So Manchester City, they've got a lot of injuries at the minute. Apparently only 13 fit outfield players. How will they cope? Nathan Ake, Ruben Diaz, Vardiol, Rico Lewis, John Stones, and Wilson Esbrand are the defenders available. I've got a graphic on screen, but I'll read it for the audio only people. Phil Foden, Gundogan, Kovacic, James McAtee, Mateus Nunez, and Bernardo Silva make up the midfielders. And Erling Haaland is the only striker available at the minute. So that's the 13 players that allegedly they only have available. Vardiol, we're not sure. There could be some injury doubts surrounding him, but obviously we will have press conferences today. I'm filming this on Friday morning, so we'll have press conferences. Maybe we'll get a little bit more news. So Haaland, he was rested in the Carabao Cup. Could it be an opportunity to go against him this week for the armband? Because they've got 2 away games and fairly tough away games, maybe Bournemouth away, Sporting away. Bournemouth were, well, tough. They beat Arsenal in the last game, but I think the red card did have a fair say in that. So the reason I really feel like this could be an opportunity to go against Erling Haaland is less about Haaland's fixtures, but more about Salah's fixtures. We'll come on to them in a bit, but Salah does have a really nice double game week this week, both fixtures at home. The other reason is because of all these injuries that City have got. They've got a lot of injuries in the forward line, and so maybe they might be lacking a little bit of creativity with some of the creative players missing. And you've also got the fact that Haaland has been a little bit off it recent form, but tread carefully because it is always dangerous to go against Erling Haaland. Foden, 6 points, 3 bonus points against Southampton. He did look really, really promising, I thought, in that Southampton match. But a 1-pointer against Spurs. He was really ineffective playing in that false 9 position against them. And it was withdrawn after the 58th minute. We don't know if that was pre-planned. They didn't seem too fussed about winning the game. They left Haaland on the bench at 2-0 down. So I think they were probably pre-planned moves in this game. So Foden, I still think I'm going to give him a bit longer I still think he's a decent option this week. You've got Matthias Nunes, 3.6 million. Now, he is a bargain at the minute from Man City. So he's playing on the left-hand side while Grealish and Doku are both out injured. And he's been incredible ever since he started playing on that left wing. So 14 points, 7 points, and 19 points in his last 3 matches. And in that time, we've got 5 attacking returns, 7 bonus as well. Really, really good for bonus points. 3 starts in a row. I don't really see any reason why he won't be starting at least one of the games, but possibly even 2 if the injury problems are as bad as they're saying. Rico Lewis, I'm just going to read out a quote on Rico Lewis from Pep. It said, Rico Lewis is the only player we cannot rest. We would like to rest him, but we cannot do it. So it seems like that's as nailed as it gets for Rico Lewis at the moment, with Walker out injured as well. City kept 2 clean sheets in their last 2 game weeks as well. So Rico Lewis, joint highest scoring defender in the game with Trent, who cost 6.3 million. Rico Lewis, just 4 million. So if you haven't got him already, I would get him, but probably not too much to be gained because I feel like he is in a lot of teams. Vardiol at this point is a wait and see. We have to see how bad the injury was that he might have got in the Spurs game. Diaz, 3.6 million. If you do want a City defender, but you are struggling for cash, he is a little bit cheaper. But I would try and get to Rico Lewis at 4 million if you can. On to my team, Arsenal. So Bukayo Saka, do we need him back in? That's pretty much the main question of this game week, it seems. Newcastle away, Inter away, 2 really hard fixtures. Do we really want to bring Saka in for these difficult fixtures? Yes, we do. He's already got attacking returns against Liverpool, PSG, Man City, Spurs, and Aston Villa. So I feel like Saka is almost a must to bring back in this week. He's someone that I want to get straight in. And the only reason I took him out was because of those injury doubts. He actually went on to feature in both games, which I think was absolutely bonkers. Obviously started the Liverpool game, scored within 10 minutes. So that was fine. Bit scary not to own him. But I was adamant that he wouldn't play against Preston. And he wasn't in the starting lineup, but he did travel. And then at 3-0 up, Saka still came off the bench, which absolutely bonkers to me. I don't really want to hear Arteta talking about the schedule and stuff like that when you're bringing Saka on for the final 30 minutes, 3-0 up against Preston. I felt that seemed like a really strange move to me. Leicester and Atalanta are the only 2 games actually this season where he started and didn't get an attack in return, but he still got 14 points in that Leicester game. So that is how good Saka is. 4 goals, 8 assists so far for the season. But he's averaging 9.4 points per game. I'll likely be bringing him back in for Cole Palmer. We'll talk about Chelsea in a minute, but I feel like that is the logical move for me. And always, I'll do my team update at the end. Kai Havertz would probably be the best second attacker from Arsenal if I was going for one. There is a lack of third strikers at the minute. A lot of people have got Salah. A lot of people have got Haaland. I don't feel like there's a real standout third best striker currently. I don't think Watkins has been at his best. Solanke's been poor. Isak has been injured for times. So I feel like Havertz is the main standout. He's third best for points as well. But you just know with Havertz that he's going to start every single game. I don't think he's as clinical as some of the other players that I mentioned, but he still has 7 goals, 1 assist from 14 games, which is a pretty good return. But I do still think that a 2-striker setup with maybe 5 midfielders is probably the better way to go. But I don't mind it. If you want a defender for this week, Gabriel's flagged, so I wouldn't be going for him. Saliba and him are really expensive as well. I don't quite think they're worth the money. Urian Timber has just come back from injury, but he was good enough to start in 2 of the matches. 4.1 million. I think he's the best option to go for from Arsenal if you're targeting those clean sheets. Ben White is actually 4.6, which is not far off it, but I still probably would just go for the cheaper option in Timber. Martinelli and Trossard, a few players that a few players have still got these in their teams from when we were targeting the good Arsenal fixtures, and other stuff's obviously come up. They are off the boil a little bit. I don't think it's a problem to hold them because they probably are going to start 2 games, but I wouldn't be bringing them in. I don't think they're looking the best at the moment. On to Liverpool. So they've got the double home fixture this week, and I just think this looks so good for Mohamed Salah. 7.4 million. I said it's obviously very, very dangerous to go against Erling Haaland with the captaincy. We all know how this can go. But I think he looks a real good option for these 2 home matches. And let me tell you why. So he's just 11 points behind Haaland at the moment, 8 goals, 7 assists. So a few less returns. But he's had 8 double-digit returns from 14 games, which is a good start, 9.5 average. But he's only blanked in 1 home match this season out of 6 that he's played in. And so having 2 home matches this week does look pretty good. Brighton at home, I think Brighton have been the best. They have just played Brighton in the Cup, 3-2 to Liverpool, but we'd expect quite different teams in the Premier League. And then Leverkusen at home, obviously the German champions from last season, will be a tough test, but I just think Liverpool at home are a really, really good side. So Salah is, I think, my best captain to target this week, but like I say, always tough to go against Erling Haaland. Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, you've probably seen from this season, I've only had him in 1 game week, and I've not been entirely sold on him. I think he could potentially be a luxury, really. 2 assists and 3 bonus points, I just think isn't good enough for 6.3 million. Liverpool have looked much, much better at the back and got 7 clean sheets, which is fine, which means all of their defenders have been scoring pretty well. But if it is just the clean sheets that they're getting and Trent isn't delivering the attacking returns that he used to, I do think that Konate or Virgil van Dijk could put up good arguments. So Konate, 4.9 million, 2 goals, 1 assist. And now last season, there was a lot of rotation with Quansah and Konate. But from what we've seen so far, Slot really does fancy Konate a lot more than Quansah, and there hasn't been much rotation there at all. So Konate at 4.9 could be a good option. His injury past record hasn't been the best, but I think he could do a job if you think there's clean sheets there. And then Virgil van Dijk, 5.4 million. He's got 2 goals as well. So both of them have either bettered or equaled Trent's attacking returns. So I think we have to see a real significant uptake in Trent's attacking returns or bonus points for him to be worth the money. Jota has been ruled out until after the international break. So I do think that could open it up for Darwin Núñez as a differential. Now, I said slim pickings in the striker positions, and I probably still stand by I'd prefer to have a 5-man midfield. But I do think Darwin Núñez could start the double game week. Was rested, I think, for this Brighton match or come off the bench. But he has had a recent 11 points goal against Leipzig and an assist, 5 points against Arsenal. And though he's a bit of a banter player, has a lot of big misses in him, but he did get 18 goals, 18 assists last season. So I think we do have to give a little bit of respect to Darwin Núñez, and it could be a nice differential. Kelleher in goal, disappointing. Who is it? Varos played him in goal for Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. So Kelleher treated like a true number 1 keeper and rested in the Carabao Cup. You could probably milk him for another couple of game weeks before Alisson comes back. I think it's due after the international break. So if you've got him, I'd definitely keep with him. I was looking back and I think he'd been the second best goalkeeper behind Martinez from the time that Kelleher came into the mix of starting playing. So I don't think it's been a bad buy, but I feel like people that have him have felt a little bit disappointed so far. But I'd keep him if I had him. But I do feel like if you are looking to make a keeper change at this point, I feel like if you bring him in, it's a transfer out quite soon. And with some nice double game weeks coming up, I think you have to consider whether are you going to end up having to take him out possibly ahead of that double game week in game week 13 where all the Premier League sides play twice. And then are you missing out on an opportunity to maybe go for an Mbuemo, an Eze, a Cunha? You could have an exciting double game week punt that week, and you might be ending up moving on your goalkeeper that week. That is one thing I'd consider, and a reason why I think I'm put off of now going for Kelleher. If I'm on a budget keeper, I think I'd probably, and I wanted to move it, I'd probably just go for another budget keeper from one of the non-European sides. On to Manchester United next. So with United, I did mention it. I feel like it is a gamble, but it's a gamble on improved performances from what we've seen last season. It's a gamble that there'll be a new manager bounce, which is a real thing. We see it a lot. Whether it's from Ruud van Nistelrooy for this couple of games up to international break, or with Amorim later on when he starts, you're hoping that they're performances improve under the new manager. But a reason I like Man United is because they still have it all to do in Europe. So they haven't won a game yet in the Europa League. So I feel like they need to go strong. So if you are going for sort of key players at Man United, I feel like you've got the best chance of getting 2 fixtures out of them, or at least a comparable chance to going for like an Arsenal, a team in the Champions League, unlike Spurs and possibly Villa, who are rotating a little bit. So new manager bounce. Obviously, Ruud's come in. They've done really, really well against Leicester, 5-2 against Leicester. Maybe we shouldn't get too carried away because it was sort of a Leicester second string side. But you'd have to say it looked improved. And we saw some big performances from the United guys. So I am liking the look of Manchester United for this period. Bruno Fernandes, 5.6 million, 23 points for the game week. As soon as Ten Hag's been sacked, he's straight back doing well. 2 goals against Leicester. He was unlucky, actually, not to have a return in the West Ham game when Ten Hag was the manager. If Dalot had put that goal in as a through ball to Dalot, which he absolutely skied from close range, maybe things could have been so much different if that had gone in, maybe for Ten Hag. But Bruno has looked good over this last game week, and someone that I bought in my team this week, and he has done really, really well. I think he's a good player to target this week with the fixtures. He's playing a more advanced position under Van Nistelrooy as well. So 2 goals, 4 assists for the season, and should get a price rise. I just think that Bruno is a good pick for this week. But we've seen how it's gone earlier in the season. Garnacho, 3.9 million. He's got 10 attacking returns already this season. So 5 goals, 5 assists, 20 points for the game week. So 3 attacking returns in this Leicester game. 1 goal, 2 assists against Leicester. He also hit the crossbar in the West Ham match. I think that would have also been a Bruno assist. And had some big chances in that game. So I think that Garnacho is looking really, really dangerous. There is always the chance that he might get rotated with maybe Ahmad or Rashford. But I don't know. With Ruud van Nistelrooy just taking charge for the next sort of few games in the run-up to the international break, I kind of feel like if I was Ruud van Nistelrooy and maybe Amorim's going to bring in his own sort of team, this is kind of your shot at being the main man for a few games. Would you not just play your best team up until the international break? Try and look as good as you can. And then if you stay, obviously you've done a good job. But if you need to go elsewhere, you've had a pretty good audition at Man United. So maybe Garnacho ends up starting these next few games. He's had third most shots on target in the game with 17 from 14 appearances. So he is getting plenty of chances to score. In defence, they're not the best defence, but they have kept a few clean sheets this season. But Dalot at 4.2 is someone that I brought in this game week, and he's done all right for me. So he had a huge miss against West Ham, which maybe he just missed it on purpose to get rid of Ten Hag. No, I'm not questioning his integrity. But then he got a nice assist in the Leicester game, a really nice cross in that one. Second assist for the season, 7 bonus. But the thing I like about Dalot the most, I've had a lot of defenders this season that have played the first game, not played the second game, rested for the first game, played the second game. Dalot starts every single game, and I just want that in my team at the minute. He's got 2 assists, 7 bonus, and he's just always available. And then eventually clean sheets are going to come. So I like Dalot as a dream team asset. Mazraoui, 3.5 million. I don't mind it as a cheaper alternative. I don't think he's as nailed as Dalot, but he's still got 6 bonus and the second most tackles in the game with 40 tackles, which is averaging out about 2.8 a game. So pretty much every game he is getting tackle points. And he's got a fair amount of bonus already this season. On to Aston Villa. Now, I don't love their fixtures. 3 away games in a row. Spurs, which, do you know what? I think Villa will beat Spurs. But the projections have Spurs as the favourites. They then have Club Brugge in the Cup. And we saw in the last round that I think Ollie Watkins got rotated. A few other players got rotated. They've got pretty much their full squad back fit now. Game week 11, away at Liverpool. Don't really fancy that one. And then game week 12, it's Crystal Palace at home with Juventus at home. which is pretty tough as well. So their fixtures are looking pretty tough longer term. Even in game week 13 in that Premier League double, it's Chelsea away and Brentford at home, two teams that are performing pretty well. So overall, I don't really like the Aston Villa fixtures at the moment, but they have got a few good players to target. So Morgan Rogers is going to be one that a lot are looking at this week to potentially move out. He got an early sub in the 57th minute, taken off against Bournemouth, and I did not play in the cup against Palace. Now, I wouldn't be concerned. I think that did not play would have been pre-planned. He's played a lot of minutes for Villa this season. Just 1 point this game week is disappointing, and he's probably going to get a pretty hefty price decrease. But this happens with enablers. I took Rodgers out last week. He got a massive haul. This week, he hasn't done too well. But it also happened with Kulusevski. So I've held Kulusevski through the price increases and decreases. Last week, Kulusevski went down 0.3. This week, he's hauled. They're just inconsistent players. But I think Rodgers and Kulusevski are two of the best enablers in the game. You're going to get weeks where they blank. You're going to get weeks where they do well. I would just be a little bit worried not worried, but I just think if you do take Morgan Rogers out, I feel like you might end up wanting an enabler back again. So you could always bring him back in next time he rises, but I just think you could potentially miss out on points, and they are a useful player to have sort of those enabling prices in your team. 2 goals, 3 assists, 6 bonus, 5.2 average is still really, really good for the price. So I just think maybe be a bit patient because it is useful to have these players in your squad. Ollie Watkins, probably an avoid for me this week. So Duran has been getting a lot of minutes. He was unlucky not to get an assist in the Bournemouth game. The ball just going out of play, but it was very, very close. But he's been getting early subs for Duran, and he has had a couple benchings now. He's benched in the last Champions League game, and he was benched in the Carabao Cup, which we didn't really expect him to start. But I just think now if I was going to go for a third striker, it probably would be Havertz just for the guaranteed minutes. And Arsenal's fixtures do look a bit better than Villa's in the long run. We've got no issues with having a Villa defender, but I don't really feel like now is the time to be targeting the defence. So I know a lot of people have got Villa defenders, and I think it's fine to hold on to them. Digne, probably the best option, and done pretty well keeping his clean sheet, while all the rest lost it with that late goal in the last Premier League match. He was subbed off early, so kept hold of the clean sheet. The only thing I would be a little bit worried about is maybe having 2 Villa defence. So if you've got like a Digne and a Martinez, or a Cash and a Martinez, with the fixtures, I do think maybe you will be wanting to move at least one of them on a bit later on. But Martinez still a top keeper if you're looking for a double game week keeper. 4 clean sheets from 12 games is pretty good. Number 1 keeper in the game and 4th highest for saves. On to Spurs, and like Villa, not that keen on their fixtures. So Villa at home, again, I don't think that's a good fixture for Spurs, even though they are the favourites. And then Galatasaray away from home, really tough place to go. And we've seen that they seem to rotate a fair bit. I thought they would have gone quite strong for AZ Alkmaar in the last round, but they didn't. And they still seem to keep getting it done in Europe. So I don't think there's any pressure to get results, to be honest. Yeah, I would look at most of these players as just single game week players for the time being. You may get lucky with an odd double. Game week 11, though, Ipswich at home does look a really nice fixture, but maybe it's a 1 week punt because game week 12, City away and Roma at home, again, looks tough. But after that, it gets a little bit better. So game week 13, there's a nice double, Fulham at home and Bournemouth away. I'm sort of treating Spurs a little bit more like a single game week team now. And then if you do get the second game, it's just a little bit of a bonus because we've seen Porro get rested. We've seen Maddison get rested, Solanke, Son. Everyone's been disappointed at some point by these rotations for Spurs. Solanke, I think it's time to go if you have him. No shots on target in his last 6 appearances was a mad stat that I saw and checked it out, and it is true. No shots on target in his last 6 appearances for Solanke. Game week 11 is a single at home to Ipswich, which does look really appealing for him. And maybe you do consider getting him back in. But I'm just wondering now, like, how many points are you missing out on just keeping hold of him? Might go on to do well now, but yeah, it hasn't been great the last few weeks, and he probably will be going down in price again. Kulusevski, 2.9 million. Not a bad thing to say about him. So, like I said, I've held him through his price changes. Sometimes it's not great, but other times he does really well. 2 assists in the cup against Man City this week, 12 points in that game. He's got 4.7 average, which is less than Rodgers for 5.2, but 2 goals, 5 assists for the season. Taking some of the corners, I can just see me holding on to Kulusevski for the bulk of the season if he carries on like this. James Maddison, only 62 minutes in this double game week, didn't play in the Man City fixture. Someone that I've owned since game week 2, but he has been getting on my nerves this last few weeks. His minutes, I was hoping that as the season went on, his minutes might improve. But at the minute, it just seems like the minutes are getting less and less and less at the moment. So 62 minutes this double game week. He has still done well, which makes it tough. So 6 points in that 62 minutes is a decent return. 7.1 average is strong, and 21 bonus points puts him second highest for bonus points in the game. So it is a tough sell if you are moving him on. 2 goals, 5 assists. I'm just starting to wonder, can I get more out of a sort of 2 a week player? And the last Spurs player that I'm going to mention is Udogie at 3.6. Now, Porro is the first player that always comes to mind when we talk about targeting Spurs defenders. He is such a good player in Dream Team. But Udogie at 3.6 million has more points overall than Porro at the moment. And it's probably because he's played more games. He's played 13 matches to Porro's 10. Now, I don't know whether Udogie is just a fitter player than Porro, and she's Porro as being more injury prone or valuable to the team. Maybe he's protecting him like he's been protecting Maddison. But Udogie's got more points and is 0.8 cheaper. So if he is going to carry on playing more games than Porro, he could be a decent option at 3.6 million. On to Chelsea. Now, the main conversation is going to be around Cole Palmer. Currently 62% owned in the game, which is massive. A lot of people brought him in this week, hoping for the double game week. Myself included, I brought him in a couple of weeks ago with a view to have him for this double game week. But he did not play against Newcastle in the cup. He played in the Newcastle home fixture in the league, scored, looked really, really dangerous. But he sat on the bench and watched his team lose 2-0 at Newcastle, which was really disappointing. I thought at 2-0 down, he'd be brought on to rescue the game. But a bit like Haaland for City, it just looked like Chelsea were willing to just go out of the cup and protect their best player. So yeah, quite surprised how that one panned out. A little bit disappointed. But now what do we do with him? Because a lot of us are looking to get Saka back in our team. And Palmer is the logical choice, in my opinion, to get him back. Now, obviously, taking Palmer out can always sting you. I mean, he scored 4 goals in a game earlier on this season. Will Saka outscore him over the next few weeks if you're looking to make that switch? Now, in game week 10, he's going to have one less fixture than Saka. So Saka would have Newcastle away and Inter away. So 2 hard games. But Chelsea will just have Man United at home for Cole Palmer at least. So it will be a 2-for-1, Saka versus Palmer. Then in game week 11, both teams face off against each other. So Arsenal away at Chelsea. So Palmer, Saka, is it going to be a 50-50 there? Probably. You'd have to say Arsenal probably one of the best defences in the league, so it will be tough. Game week 12 is another European double game week. So Arsenal at home to Forest and Chelsea away at Leicester. You could argue that Chelsea probably have the better single there, but you would say that that is still a good fixture for Saka. But then Saka would get Sporting, whereas Chelsea in Europa Conference League won't play Palmer or can't play Palmer at the minute. So you'd have to say Saka looks the better option there for a 2-for-1 as well. But then come game week 13, I do think we will want to have a route to Cole Palmer because it's Villa at home and Southampton away in a Premier League double game week. And that's the one where I think a lot of people may consider playing boosters. Maybe your 12th man him in. Maybe it could be a good week for Max Captain, having someone like Haaland and Palmer both in your team. Or even the goal bonus. It's not one that I'm looking at for that week, but it is always an option in a Premier League double. So I still think it's a decent move to move Palmer to Saka this week. But these are the sort of things you need to consider. Palmer, also, fifth high scoring player in the game despite only playing 9 matches. So he is doing really, really well. All of the players above him in the overall rankings have played either somewhere between 11 and 14 games. So they've had the clear advantage there. He's on 7 goals, 5 assists for the season. So like I said, it can always damage you, but I just think it is the logical move to make. Then a little differential from Chelsea. So Neto at 3 million. He's due a rise. He got 10 points this game week, and he's been averaging 4.2 points per game. He's been involved in Premier League and European football this season. So not many Chelsea players have been playing in both. He hasn't been starting both necessarily, but he has been playing in both. There's been some strange comments as well about Sancho coming from the Chelsea manager. And Sancho also can't play against Manchester United, his parent club. So he will be missing out on this one. So you get Neto for Man United, and maybe you get a few minutes in the in the Europa Conference League as well. So it could be an all right differential enabler. Maybe if some of your mini league rivals have got Rodgers or Kulusevski and you don't want to have the same player, maybe you could go for Neto instead. On to my team update then. So we are into the top 100, 99th on the overall leaderboard. Finally had a week where my 2 transfers in have given me a positive return. When you go in and look at what your past transfers done, mine has been just red the whole way through. I don't know how I'm 99th when every transfer that I make seems to be in a negative, but finally I have been in the positive this week. Bruno Fernandes and Dalot came in for Saka and Matty Cash. Saka did score, Bruno scored twice, and Dalot played twice and got an assist, 8 points versus Matty Cash's 2 points. Bruno Fernandes with a huge 23 points this week. So yeah, finally transfer that's gone my way and not been too badly punished by the players that I've taken out. So really happy with that. 126 points for the game week. I've got a Sells assist in goal. He's looking like he's going to rise again. But again, the clean sheet odds are pretty good for Forest. Forest is starting to get considered a tough game. Lewis and Vardiol got double clean sheets for me this week. We're going to have to keep an eye on the news with Vardiol, but I just have a feeling he's going to be okay. Dalot, I mentioned, 8 points. Cole Palmer with the 10, but obviously the Carabao Cup disappointment. Bruno Fernandes with his 2 goals, 23 points. Maddison, I've mentioned that he's been frustrating me, so 6 points isn't a bad return. I'm looking at his 6 points and feeling a bit annoyed, but I've got Phil Foden next to him with 7 points, who did play 2 fixtures, so getting all the minutes isn't necessarily the best. Foden probably going to get a drop now as well, but Foden is in my long-term plans. Kulusevski, 12 points for his 2.9 price tag. I'm well pleased with that. And then Haaland was my captain. Obviously didn't start the second fixture, so not my best captain this week, but I still take 24 points. I think it was a decent decision. And then Salah, 12 points. These 2 up top, untouchable for me at the moment. So main priority this week is going to be how to get Saka back. It was always, when I made that move to take him out, it would have been with a view to get him straight back in. But then I don't really have too much to fix. Obviously, I could look at doing a keeper move, but I've said I'm not that keen on Kelleher, and I'm not really willing to sort of break up my team to get a European goalkeeper at the moment. So second sort of transfer, I don't have a massive priority. It's just getting Saka back. And then to be confirmed on the Vardiol injury. So what am I looking at? So if I just do Palmer out to Saka, I'm minus 0.2. So I've got to find 0.2 somewhere in my team, which isn't great because I quite like my team. Palmer to Saka looks the logical move. I did look at, could I keep Palmer and get Saka? Maybe bring Saka in for Maddison instead. If I did that, I'd need to find a lot more money. I looked maybe taking Vardiol out and replacing him with a 2.9, but I think that's scraping the barrel a little bit there. Foden to 4.2 million and Maddison to Saka could work. I could do Nunes, so keep Palmer, Maddison to Saka, Foden to a 4.2, but I kind of like Foden. I could move him to Nunes, potentially 3.6, but I just think I'd rather get the extra fixtures, take Palmer out, get 2 from Saka. I've got 2 from Bruno. I think I will get 2 from Foden with the way that the City squad's shaping out at the minute. So I still think that's fine. I prefer looking at my team, moving Palmer onto Saka, and then having a bit more to play with that second transfer, play the doubles. So I'm looking at potentially doing Palmer and Maddison to Saka, and then a 4.4 Maddison replacement. I feel like that's not a bad price point, and there's a few options. So Saka's projected to stay the same. I'd want a rise really from a second transfer, because I have been sort of putting off the price changes recently a little bit. Garnacho is projected to rise 0.2, got 20 points, so may even sneak a 0.3 potentially. He's 3.9 million. I think he looks a really, really good option, but it would mean going triple Man United, which is a big risk. We'll come on to that in a minute. I do think Mateus Nunes is a very good option as well, 3.6 million. He's projected to rise 0.3, but it possibly is a little bit shorter term with City's sort of injuries and depth. Once Doku and Grealish start coming back in the team, we know that there's going to be rotation stuff coming. We've got KDB's coming back, so maybe Foden could get pushed out there as well. There are options. I know there is a lot of injuries at City, but yeah, it feels a little bit shorter term. So with United's fixtures, results needed in Europe, and a potential new manager bounce, I am leaning for this Garnacho move. I know it feels a little bit bonkers having 3 United, but I feel like it could be a possible edge when other people aren't necessarily going to be willing to go there. So I think I'm willing to take the risk on this triple Man United. And it's fairly easy to get out of if I need to. Captaincy, I think I've made it fairly clear. I'm leaning towards Salah as my captain. Brighton home and Bayer Leverkusen at home versus Haaland, Bournemouth away, Sporting away. It will be close, but I do think that if there is sort of an opportunity is when Haaland's away and then when Salah's at home, and it's sort of 2 of each in this scenario. Salah, really good form. Haaland, you could argue, has dipped a little bit, and there's a few less creative players out there, but I'm not an idiot. He could get a hat-trick in one of these games. He could quite easily do that. So it is always a risk going against Erling Haaland, but I think I might take it this week. That is everything for this episode. So thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are not already. And do check out the Dream Team Tonic podcast. I'll leave a link after this video to our latest episode. See you on our deadline stream at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Good luck for Game Week 10.